Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to generalize an integral I did in my last video. So we are basically going to generalize the Secchi integral, and as always let's get started with our work. So in my last video we calculated the integral from 0 to 1 of the natural log of 1 plus x divided by 1 plus x squared dx, and today we're going to generalize this integral. Let's just call the previous one I naught and today's integral I. We're going to generalize it in such a way that we have the integral from 0 to a. Let's just call it p, not just choice of constants. Natural log of 1 plus p times x divided by 1 plus x squared dx. So if you notice, I naught is just I when p equals 1. So this is the way we are going to generalize yesterday's integral. So we are going to generalize the Secchi integral. But in my last video, that's when we calculated this thing, I had used Leibniz rule after showing you what relevant substitutions or parameterizations we could use to go forward with Leibniz rule, and I also explained why integration by parts and other elementary integration techniques are going to fail. However, instead of using Leibniz rule, there were two parameterizations even in Leibniz rules that I discussed. But there is also another technique that we can use to calculate this special case of our generalized Secchi integral. That's the method of trigonometric substitution. And it turns out that we can also calculate this generalized integral with trigonometric substitution. So in today's video, I'm going to use trigonometric substitution instead of using the Leibniz rule that I talked about in my previous video, because otherwise it will just be repetitive. So I'm going to use trigonometric substitution to come up with a nice final answer for this generalized integral. So let's get started now. So we have our integral I from 0 to p of the natural log of 1 plus p times x divided by 1 plus x squared dx. And noticing the denominator, this is one of those standard expressions for trigonometric substitution that I talked about in my differentiation 4 video. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about at this point of time, please go check out that video. It's in my high school calculus playlist, and only then will you understand what I'm talking about. So since this is a standard form, the appropriate substitution that we can use is x equals tangent of theta, such that dx is nothing but secant squared theta d theta. So our I is now integral from theta is nothing but inverse tangent of x. So when x is 0, inverse tangent of 0 is 0, so theta is also 0. When x equals p, we have theta equal inverse tangent of p. So inverse tangent of p, integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p of the natural log of 1 plus p times tan theta in the place of x divided by 1 plus tan squared theta, and dx is nothing but secant squared theta d theta. So we get integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p of the natural log of, instead of writing tan, I want to express this as the ratio of the sine and the cosine. So 1 plus p times sine theta divided by cosine theta, and notice that 1 plus tan squared theta using our square identities is secant squared theta, and we have a secant squared theta here as well. So these two cancel out, and that is exactly the purpose behind choosing this kind of substitution. This 1 plus x squared actually motivated us to use a tangent and not a sine or a cosine or any other trigonometric function. So now we have integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p of the natural log of cross multiplying. We have cosine theta plus p times sine theta divided by cosine theta and a d theta. Now I want you to notice that there is a certain identity associated with logs of any base, not just natural log which has a base of e, but logs of any base. So say we have log to the base w of a quotient of arguments a over b. We can break this up into log to the base w, keeping the base same, of a minus log to the base w of b. So that's how we can decompose a quotient that is in the place of the argument. So now we have I equals integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p of the natural log of cosine theta plus p times sine theta d theta minus integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p of the natural log of whatever was in the denominator, cosine theta d theta. So I've just used this identity and then just taken the integral on both sides, basically, because integral is you can split an integral into two different integrals if you can write them as a difference or a sum by the linearity of an integral. So now we have two integrals to calculate. So I'm going to call this I1 and we're going to call this I2. So our general equation to finish with I is I1 minus I2. So let's do I1 on a fresh page now. See you there. So as discussed, we have I1 being equal to integral from 0 to the inverse tangent of p of the natural log of cosine theta plus p times sine theta d theta. Now is there any way that because now we have a sum of two different trigonometric functions, the sine and the cosine namely, is there a way that we can convert this sum into a single term? Well, if you're thinking along these lines, you're going in the right direction, because we can certainly use some compound angle formulas. So let's recall that cosine of a minus b is cosine of a cosine of b plus sine of a times the sine of b, and if we say b equals theta, we'll have cosine of a minus theta being equal to now the cosine of a times the cosine of theta plus the sine of a times the sine of theta. So let's compare this with whatever we had inside the natural log. So notice that we have a cosine theta but no cosine of a, we have a sine theta but no sine of p. But can we introduce these trigonometric terms, these trigonometric identities into inside this natural log, associated with this expression? Well, notice that we have a 1 in the numerator here and a p in the place of sine of a, but we really want to convert this into sine of a. So you can remember that the sine is nothing but the ratio of the opposite side and the hypotenuse, and the cosine is the ratio of the adjacent side and the hypotenuse in a right angle triangle, in a classical right angle triangle. So if we let this coefficient p be the opposite side when we draw a triangle, so let's call this angle A because of this formula. This is right angle triangle, so this is 90 degrees. So as I said, opposite, let's make opposite equal p. So opposite of A is P, and adjacent, because the coefficient of associated with this cos theta is 1, so which means the adjacent, let it be 1. Adjacent of this angle A is 1, and we have to find the hypotenuse. Finding the hypotenuse is easy. We just use the Pythagorean theorem, and we have 1 plus pi squared under square root. That's the length, the value of your hypotenuse actually. So great. So sine of A now by this formula is going to be P divided by square root of 1 plus P squared, and therefore cosine of A is just going to be 1 divided by square root of 1 plus P squared. So notice that we have these numerators and these numerators in place. We have 1 in place, we have P in place. We just don't have this denominator in place. So we can multiply and divide by this square root of 1 plus P squared factor now. So our I1 now becomes integral from 0 to inverse tangent of P of the natural log of cosine theta divided by square root of 1 plus P squared plus P divided by square root of 1 plus P squared times sine theta. But we still have to divide by 1 plus P squared because that originally wasn't in our expression, and we still have to maintain equality. We just can't introduce this square root of 1 plus P squared out of nowhere, right? So when we divide by 1 plus the square root of 1 plus P squared, we have to multiply by it too, so that resultant term is 1, and we have a d theta, don't forget that. So now this evaluates to, now since we have a product inside a log, we can split it into a sum of two different logs. So we have integral from 0 to inverse tangent of P of the natural log of 1 divided by 1 plus square root of 1 plus P squared times cosine theta plus P divided by square root of 1 plus P squared times sine theta d theta, plus I'm splitting them into two different logs and two different integrals. So integral from 0 to inverse tangent of P of just this expression, natural log of just this expression. So natural log of square root of 1 plus P squared and a d theta. So now we can simplify this to integral from 0 to inverse tangent of P of the natural log of, well, 1 over 1 plus P squared, square root of 1 plus P squared is basically a cosine of A, right? So we have cosine of A times cosine theta plus P divided by square root of 1 plus P squared is basically sine A. So sine A times sine theta d theta plus, well, this is just a constant, right? So we can just bring that out of the integral because it's a constant. So we have the natural log of square root of 1 plus P squared and the integral from 0 to inverse tangent of P with the d theta associated with it. So now in our first integral, notice we can just use the identity that we described very first, this identity basically. So all of this, we just have the same expression, cosine of A times cosine theta plus sine of A times sine theta. That is nothing but cosine of A minus theta. So I can totally convert everything into integral from 0 to inverse tangent of P of the natural log of cosine of A minus theta d theta plus, now notice that 1 plus P squared has a power of half because the square root is nothing but a power of half. So this entire term 1 plus P squared is raised to the half power, and using properties of logs you can bring the power down and multiply the log with the power. So we have half of natural log of 1 plus P squared. See, now notice that the power is gone because we brought it down and made it multiply with the natural log. And integrating d theta is just easy. It's just theta integrated from inverse tangent of P to 0. fine, but I would actually also like to use some symmetry here. Notice that when we had an integral from a to b of f of x, this is all properties of definite integrals dx. We could convert this into integral from a to b of f of b plus a minus x dx. So we could just add upper bound plus lower bound minus the initial variable of integration. We can convert any integral into this form. So let's use that property on this first integral. So we integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p. The upper and lower bounds remain the same. If you notice, we have the natural log of the cosine of well, tan inverse of p plus 0 is just tan inverse of p, but with a negative of this thing. So this will be negative a and negative positive theta d theta, and we have the other term as it is, plus half of the natural log of 1 plus p squared, and integrating this, basically substituting the upper and lower bounds, plugging them in, we get just the inverse tangent of p minus 0, which is just the inverse tangent of p. So now we have integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p. Now can we convert our a, or even if say our inverse tangent of p, not a, if you want, into a better convenient form? For that we need to refer to our triangle that we drew. So inverse tangent of p, how can we represent p basically in terms of angle a? So if you look closely, p is equal to p over 1 basically is equal to the tan of a. So tan of a, if you notice, is opposite of a divided by adjacent of a. That's p over 1, right? So tan of a is equal to p over 1, which is p. So now taking the inverse tangent on both sides, we have a equals the inverse tangent of p. So our inverse tangent of p is equal to a. And that is really useful because now we can perform a substitution here. So we have the natural log of cosine of inverse tangent of p is nothing but a minus a plus theta d theta plus half of the natural log of 1 plus p squared times the inverse tangent of p. And notice that the a's will go out, and we just have the integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p of the natural log of cosine theta. Now everything else just cancelled out, d theta plus half of the natural log of 1 plus p squared times the inverse tangent of p. So that's basically what your I1 evaluates to. And now let's do the second part, I2. So I2 is integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p times the natural log of cosine theta d theta. And surprise, we don't even need to do anything for I2. And I'll show you why. Because remember our general equation, we can just keep I2 as it is for now. Because remember our general equation, I equals I1 minus I2. We calculated I1, right? So what's I1? I1 is the integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p of the natural log of cosine theta after all those angle reductions and inverse trigonometry that we performed, plus half of the natural log of 1 plus p squared times the inverse tangent of p minus I2, but I2 is just this. So minus integral from 0 to inverse tangent of p times the natural log of the natural log of cosine theta d theta. And now notice the one great thing is these two are the same integrals, so they just cancel out because there is subtraction going on over here. So finally we are left with So I is just going to be half of the natural log of 1 plus p squared times the inverse tangent of p. So that's basically what your I or your original integral is going to be. Now time to actually summarize everything. So in today's video we attempted to generalize the Sechet integral. So we have our generalized Sechet integral as integral from 0 to p the natural log of 1 plus px divided by 1 plus x squared dx, and that just evaluated to half of the natural log of p squared plus 1 times the inverse tangent of p. And if you try to substitute p equals 1 into this entire thing, you just obtain your I naught, or basically the integral from my previous video, integral from 0 to 1 of the natural log of 1 plus x divided by 1 plus x squared dx. You just end up, you have to substitute p equals 1 here too, half of natural log of p squared or 1 squared plus 1, which is 2 times the natural the inverse tangent of 1. If you simplify that, you just get inverse tangent of 1 is pi over 4 times half is pi over 8 times log 2, and that's exactly what we obtained yesterday, right? Which means we've generalized our Sechet integral correctly. So we just use trig substitution or trigonometric substitution instead of the Leibniz rule that is originally intended or was discussed for my previous video integral. But all in all, it's a really nice result. I mean, it's actually fascinating that we're able to generalize something using some trigonometric symmetry and stuff like that. So that's it for this video, guys. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel. I really need to grow, guys. You can follow me on Instagram. I have the username gamma_digamma. I post math art and I'm going to expand on that in the future. So please stay tuned and support me as much as you can. Meanwhile, stay home, stay safe, have a great day. Peace out.